With B, again, if you do not enroll when you're eligible, there is a penalty, and that penalty is an additional 10% for each full 12-month period that you could have had Part B, but you didn't. And this penalty is added to your Part B premium for your lifetime, so that penalty cannot come off, which is why it's so important to not delay your enrollment in Part B when you're eligible. Now, there are exceptions, which we'll talk about, to where you may not need to enroll in Part B when you're first eligible. And the biggest one is if you have credible employer group coverage. If you work at Duke, I think I know a couple folks here work at Duke. If you work at Duke and you are still working post 65, okay, you do not need to enroll in Part B when you turn 65 because you have credible group coverage. If you work for any employer with more than 20 employees and they have a group health insurance plan that you're on and that's available to you as an employee, you do not need to enroll in Part B when you turn 65. Some people will still do so, but you don't have to. And there's rarely is there a reason to do so. Now, if you are at 65 and you're retiring and your employer offers a different retiree health plan, most retiree health plans will require you to be on Part B, and Medicare is going to be your primary, and that retiree health plan is going to be your secondary, okay? i.e. Duke Plus, okay? But while you're actively working, on the normal group health plan with something like a Duke or some other large employer, like IBM, if you work for, again, any large employer more than 20 employees, you do not need to enroll in Part B right away. How do we sign up for B? So this is where it's a little bit different. You know, when you turn 65, a lot of folks think they have to take Social Security and Medicare. Of course you don't. You can choose to just take Medicare. You could choose to just take Social Security, not Medicare, in particular if you're working for group coverage. But generally speaking, you know, a lot of folks will say, well, I'm going to hold off on starting my Social Security, but I'm going to need to get my Medicare. So if you are taking Social Security prior to 65, that Part B you're going to be automatically signed up for. So they're going to sign up you up for it automatically, and they're going to take that Part B out of your Social Security check on a monthly basis. If you are not on Social Security prior to 65, when you go into the Social Security Administration to enroll, and we provide assistance with this, again, you can elect to start taking Social Security or just start taking Medicare. If you say, I'm just going to sign up for Medicare Part B, and again, keep in mind that A, you're already enrolling, okay? They're going to enroll you in B, and you're going to get a quarterly bill from Social Security. You're going to bill that $202.90 times 3, or whatever your urban adjustment is, and that's going to get billed by Social Security. And that bill, when you first get it, you can say, okay, I'm just going to pay it per quarter, or you can turn around and you can set it up for monthly payments to Medicare, because Social Security is like the middle, okay? So when you get that first quarterly bill, you can pay it quarterly, or you can set up monthly payments. We've had a few folks over the years make the mistake of saying they're not going to take their Social Security, they sign up for B, we can't see their bills, of course, or their mail, and they selectively ignore the quarterly bills from Medicare for B. And a certain period of time goes by, they're on some other supplemental Medicare coverage, and then all of a sudden, they find out from Social Security that they've been disenrolled from B because they haven't paid it. And then they're charged a significant late enrollment penalty, and then there's a further penalty where you have to wait longer before you can re-enroll in it. So then everything that they had their other coverage on, they go back and get charged for Medicaid, which ideally we don't think about that. So bottom line is, if you're not taking Social Security and you're getting that quarterly bill, you either have to pay quarterly or set it up for monthly payments to Medicare. And that is what is detailed right there. And there's a change going on with the federal retiree program for postal service employees specifically.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yes, yeah, so that's a little different. But the biggest one that we want to focus on is if you're working for a large employer, okay, more than 20 employees, and you're actively working as an employee, you don't need to worry about B right now, okay? There's rarely a reason to do it. If you're a state employee, same thing. If you're actively working, don't worry about it. But if you're going onto the retiree plan, you're going to need to enroll in B, and you'll need to make some other decisions about what you want for your additional Medicare coverage, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that I read that it said that my company, his insurance would be primary, Medicare would be secondary.
Yes.
Yeah, that's typically the case. Yeah, that's right.
Pharmaceutical.
That's typically the case. So I think because you're actively employed on some retiree plan, and I think he's probably okay. He's probably okay without B, but I think we just want to double check it. I think you're probably okay with that.
But then if I retire in just
That's different.
months,
That's different.
yeah.
And then you want to go down on B. Yeah, yeah.
Sort of.
And if we're talking about a window, because you're, as you say, you're 70, what?
64.
64. Yeah, if you may retire in a couple months, you could be still in that window of your initial eligibility anyway. So I would say if there's a retirement coming, you're probably gonna want to get on that B when you're eligible. Yes, sir. Okay, so now we'll talk about prescription drug coverage, which is part D. Okay, so prescription drug coverage is offered by private insurance companies, and obviously this covers your prescription medications. The premiums for your prescription drug plans are going to vary by your company that you choose, and they're also going to vary by your income because of the IRMA adjustment. There's a penalty also for late enrollment in Part D if you don't have credible prescription drug coverage, which again is going to fall under typically your health insurance, okay? So you get your Part D coverage one of two ways. You either get it as a standalone prescription drug plan, or you get it under a Medicare Advantage plan. And you choose what Part D coverage you get based on your prescriptions, your costs, your needs, the cost of the plan. You get to pick. Folks may or may not know that if you have anyone in here that has Medicare, until 2025, you had something called the donut hole with prescription drug costs, which is where you had initial copays, an initial deductible to meet for certain drugs. Then you got into an area of co-insurance where you were responsible for almost all of the charges, and that donut hole could be several $1,000s of out-of-pocket that you would have before it would go to a catastrophic phase. And all in all, you could have up to $5,000 or $6,000 of out-of-pocket costs on prescription drugs. With the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in 2025, the federal government essentially changed the prescription drug program, and they capped the out-of-pocket costs on prescription drugs. It was $2,000 last year. In 2026, it's $2,100. So for your covered prescriptions on your prescription drug plan, and this is whether it's with a independent standalone plan or as part of a Medicare Advantage plan, your coverage cap is $2,100. So it's a lot lower, which is great on the surface for the Medicare beneficiary because we know your covered prescriptions are capped. What do the insurance companies do about that? They have cut back on benefits in other areas with Medicare coverage. They have reduced their formularies of what drugs are covered. They have raised deductibles to the maximum amount that they can for the prescription drugs. They've taken away some of the great bell and whistle ancillary benefits that you had with Medicare Advantage, like $3,000 worth of dental and, great gym membership benefits and all that. They've taken away in other areas because they've been forced to cover more of the prescription drugs. The most important thing to remember about this is that when you check your prescription drugs, and I may have this on the next slide, when you check your prescription drugs, you've got to make sure that they're covered on that company's formulary. And also, those formularies can change. They always change every year, okay? The drug could go from one tier to another. It could not be covered on the plan. Also, the company could change the formulary in the middle of the year without telling you. They'll send out a letter, but you won't notice it. So you could have a drug that was covered in January, and then all of a sudden, you find out in June they no longer cover that drug. There also are a lot more drugs these days that require prior authorization or step therapy to where they're going to kind of make you go through some hoops to get on a prescription that you might be accustomed to taking. And if you're going from a group health insurance plan or an individual health insurance plan over to Medicare for the first time, regardless of approvals or exceptions you had on certain prescriptions, that's not going to fall right over into your Medicare coverage. Your doctor or your providers will need to go through some of those processes again. Even if you so happen to go with the same company, let's say you had a Blue Cross and Blue Shield health insurance plan, and you go to a Blue Cross and Blue Shield Medicare plan, you notice Blue Cross and Blue Shield is a separate entity, it's a separate type of health coverage.